Have you ever stared at your phone at 30,000 feet, realizing your own mother just threw you to the wolves? She did not just cancel my hotel room mid-flight. She used my credit card to book my brother the most expensive presidential suite in Austin. She assumed an exhausted software engineer with nowhere to sleep would simply surrender. She was entirely wrong. Listen closely, because you are about to watch a family empire crumble with one single click. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Maya Revenge Stories. We sincerely appreciate your continuous support, but unfortunately, YouTube has completely demonetized our channel, leaving us without the budget to keep operating here, which means we are forced to stop uploading new videos on this platform in the near future and will be moving our operations over to Patreon. If you enjoy today's story, please consider supporting us by joining our Patreon community to hear even better, longer, and incredibly detailed, exclusive true stories with multiple emotional voice actors that we simply cannot make public on YouTube. You can join by scanning the QR code on your screen or by clicking the Patreon link in the video description or pinned comment. Now, let us dive into today's story, where my name is Scarlett Martinez, and this is how I destroyed an empire. The cabin air tasted stale, recirculated through the Boeing vents for the past 3 hours. I shifted in my cramped window seat, my knees pressing against the hard plastic of the tray table. I am 28 years old, and this flight to Austin, Texas, was supposed to be the victory lap for Aero Yield Solutions, the agricultural technology startup I had built from absolute nothing. Tomorrow morning, I was scheduled to pitch to the largest venture capital firm in the country. The stakes were astronomical. Millions of dollars in seed funding were on the line. I just needed a good night of uninterrupted sleep at the conference hotel to prepare my mind and review my financial projections. Then, the captain announced our descent. The seatbelt sign chimed, illuminating the dim cabin with a harsh orange glow, and the aircraft dipped beneath a thick cloud line. My smartphone caught the local network signal, and the in-flight Wi-Fi immediately flooded my screen with pending notifications. One text message stood out. It was from my mother, Elena. I canceled your room. Julian and his wife need proper space to entertain guests. Find some cheap motel in the suburbs, and do not embarrass the family tomorrow. I stared at the glowing pixels. My pulse did not spike. I did not gasp for air. I just stared, letting the sheer audacity of the betrayal wash over me. A second later, a priority notification from my elite tier hotel application slid down from the top of the screen. I tapped it with a steady finger, watching the loading circle spin before revealing the devastating truth. My entire balance of 250,000 loyalty points was gone. Worse, the corporate credit card I had securely saved on the file had been charged for an exorbitant upgrade fee. Elena had not just canceled my standard king room, she had impersonated me, bypassed the basic security questions she knew the answers to, and upgraded the reservation to the most expensive presidential suite in the entire building. And she had maliciously put the new reservation under the names of Julian, my golden child older brother, and Chloe, his shallow social media influencer wife. For a fraction of a second, the heavy, suffocating weight of family betrayal pressed down on my chest. The airplane cabin suddenly felt infinitely smaller, the curved walls closing in on me like a plastic tomb. I was trapped at 30,000 feet with no control over my own assets. But I am a software engineer. My brain is specifically wired to identify system bugs, isolate malicious code, and deploy aggressive patches. I did not cry. I did not panic. I leaned back against the uncomfortable fabric headrest and let pure, cold logic take over my nervous system. This was not about a comfortable bedroom. This was a targeted, calculated denial of service attack on my physical and mental well-being. Julian was presenting his own failing company at the exact same tech conference. Elena knew perfectly well that forcing me to scramble for a sketchy, roach-infested motel on the outskirts of Austin at 9 o'clock at night would leave me severely sleep-deprived, physically unkempt, and frantic for the morning pitch. They wanted to break my intense focus. They wanted me to fail miserably so Julian could shine under the spotlight. They completely forgot who wrote the rules of the digital game they were clumsily trying to play. I opened my contacts. I bypassed my mother entirely. Instead, I initiated an encrypted Wi-Fi voice call to a man named Marcus. 5 years ago, Marcus was a brilliant white hat hacker who helped me secure my early database architecture against corporate espionage. Today, he was the global director of cybersecurity for the exact luxury hotel chain hosting the venture capital conference. He picked up on the second ring. "Scarlett," Marcus said, his voice deep and incredibly calm over the static connection. "Tell me you are landing soon. The tech convention crowd is already destroying the main lobby." "Marcus, I need an emergency favor." I kept my voice low, my tone entirely devoid of panic or emotion. "Someone just committed identity theft and financial fraud, using my guest profile. They booked the presidential suite at your Austin property under the name Julian Martinez. They used my corporate credit card and drained my reward points." I could instantly hear the rapid, rhythmic clacking of a mechanical keyboard on his end of the line. Marcus did not ask for the dramatic emotional backstory. He operated strictly in binary, true or false, authorized or unauthorized. "Give me the reservation number," he commanded. I read the 12-digit alphanumeric code off my illuminated screen. "I see it in the mainframe," Marcus said, the typing growing noticeably faster. "Booked 45 minutes ago. The Internet Protocol address traces back to a residential network in Chicago. Your mother?" "My mother," I confirmed, my voice hardening. "I need you to nuke it from orbit." "Consider it done. This is clear-cut financial fraud. I am locking the reservation file right now. I am freezing all room access. The presidential suite is now completely dead in our global system. If they try to check in, the front desk system will immediately flag it as a fraudulent financial transaction." "How long until the system lock takes full effect?" I asked, watching the sprawling city lights of Austin grow larger outside my tiny oval window. "It is already done," Marcus replied, hitting a final key that echoed loudly through the small speaker. 3 minutes flat. The suite is secured and locked down. I am also permanently wiping your credit card data from the compromised profile and rerouting your stolen points to a secure holding account. Where are you staying tonight?" "I will figure it out. Thank you, Marcus. I owe you. Do not worry about the room. I will have a secure corporate apartment key waiting for you with my private security driver at the arrivals curb. Go destroy them tomorrow. Scarlett." I hung up the phone just as the landing gear deployed with a heavy, reverberating mechanical thud beneath my feet. I looked back at the hotel application. The extravagant reservation for Julian and Chloe had vanished into the digital void, replaced by a glaring red error message indicating a frozen account due to suspicious activity. My mother thought she could bury me before I even stepped foot in Texas. She thought I would be wandering the unfamiliar streets with my heavy luggage, begging for a safe place to sleep. But as the rubber wheels of the Boeing 777 violently kissed the tarmac, a slow, predatory smile spread across my face. The war had just begun, and my brother was about to walk directly into an invisible minefield. The fluorescent lights of the Austin Bergstrom International Airport baggage claim flickered overhead, casting a harsh glare on the exhausted travelers. Through the dense crowd of tech entrepreneurs, they were impossible to miss. Julian and Chloe looked less like startup founders and more like actors auditioning for a reality television show about excessive wealth. Chloe was draped in a tailored beige trench coat, clutching a custom leather handbag that cost easily $5,000. Her oversized sunglasses remained firmly on her face indoors. Julian stood beside her, his posture dripping with unearned arrogance. He wore a crisp navy blazer, and dangling aggressively from his neck was the platinum VIP lanyard for tomorrow's summit. It was a pathetic, glittering facade. I knew the exact financial reality of his company. Julian was currently drowning in nearly $2 million of unsecured corporate debt. His startup was a sinking ship, yet here he was, masquerading as a titan of industry. Julian spotted me. He nudged Chloe, and the two of them drifted toward me with synchronized, predatory smiles. "Scarlett," Julian purred, his voice loud enough to ensure the surrounding passengers could hear. He practically oozed fake sympathy. "Mom told me about your little accommodation disaster. It is a real shame the hotel is completely booked up for the conference." But listen, family takes care of family. Chloe and I talked it over. If you play nice and keep a low profile, we can probably let you crash on the sofa in our presidential suite. Chloe adjusted her expensive sunglasses and chimed in with a sickly sweet tone. It is genuine Italian leather. Scarlett, honestly, it is much nicer than whatever cheap motel you are going to end up in. I did not flinch. I did not raise my voice. I just looked at them, my eyes methodically dissecting their fragile illusion. I appreciate the incredibly generous offer, I said, my voice perfectly level, dripping with absolute ice. But I have my own transportation arranged, and I highly recommend you check your hotel application before you start offering out furniture. Julian let out a condescending scoff, shaking his head. Always so stubborn. Suit yourself, little sister. Right on cue, his brand new smartphone began to vibrate frantically in his blazer pocket. The custom ringtone echoed loudly over the mechanical hum of the baggage carousel. He pulled it out, frowning at the caller identification. It is the hotel concierge, Julian announced, puffing out his chest, clearly assuming it was a welcome call for his VIP status. He swiped to answer and put the phone on speaker mode, wanting to show off. Julian Martinez speaking. I assume my suite is ready? The voice on the other end was professional, crisp, and completely devoid of warmth. Mr. Martinez, this is the overnight front desk manager. I am calling to inform you that your reservation for the presidential suite has been permanently flagged and canceled by our global security department. The transaction was identified as fraudulent due to unauthorized credit card usage. Julian froze. The smug, confident smile vanished from his face in a millisecond, replaced by a pale, sickly shade of white. What are you talking about? There must be a system error. My mother booked that suite. There is no error, sir, the manager replied smoothly. The primary card holder reported the theft. Your profile has been blacklisted across all our properties nationwide. Furthermore, we currently have 0 available rooms. We suggest you find alternative accommodations. Have a pleasant evening. The line went dead. A heavy, humiliating silence fell over our small circle. The surrounding passengers, who had heard the entire exchange through the speakerphone, began to whisper and point. A few businessmen in the corner openly chuckled at the platinum VIP badge hanging around the neck of a man who just got banned for credit card fraud. Chloe gasped, her manicured hands flying to her mouth. Julian, what is happening? Where are we going to sleep? Before Julian could stutter out a response, his phone lit up again. This time, it was Elena. Julian frantically answered, pulling the phone off speaker. But my mother's shrill, hysterical voice was so loud, it pierced through the receiver. She was screaming something about her account being locked and the police being mentioned. I did not wait around to listen to the rest of the meltdown. I reached down, grabbed the handle of my heavy luggage, and smoothly turned my back on them. I walked away with perfect posture, my heels clicking rhythmically against the polished airport floor, leaving them paralyzed in the center of the terminal, surrounded by the mocking stares of their peers. I stepped out into the humid Texas night air. Marcus had kept his word. A sleek black luxury sport utility vehicle was idling at the curb, the driver already stepping out to take my bags. I slid into the quiet, air-conditioned back seat, letting out a long, controlled exhale. The first battle was won. But as the vehicle merged onto the dark highway toward the secure corporate apartment, my mind instantly replayed the scene at the baggage claim. I mentally rewound the footage, analyzing every visual detail of Julian with the precision of a software compiler scanning for errors. My breathing suddenly stopped. When Julian had reached into his pocket to pull out his vibrating phone, he had awkwardly shifted a thick manila folder he was carrying under his left arm. In that brief, chaotic moment, the cover page of the document had slipped partially out. I had seen a logo. It was a highly specific, geometric emblem resembling a digitized wheat stalk. My blood turned to ice. That was the proprietary logo for Project Ceres, the revolutionary machine learning algorithm I had been secretly coding for the past 14 months. It was the core foundation of my entire pitch for tomorrow morning. I had not announced it to the public. I had not even filed the final trademark paperwork. The only place that logo existed was on my highly encrypted private cloud server. Julian did not just want to make me late. He had not just stolen my credit card. He was walking into the biggest tech conference in America holding a printed copy of my life's work. The game had just escalated from petty family sabotage to high-stakes corporate espionage. The espresso machine hissed violently, cutting through the heavy silence of the 24-hour cyber cafe tucked away in a quiet corner of downtown Austin. It was nearly 2 o'clock in the morning. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed with a low, rhythmic hum. I sat in a dimly lit booth across from Marcus. His sleek, titanium laptop was open, casting a cold blue glow over his sharp features. We were not here to chat. We were here to dissect a digital crime scene. "I bypassed the secondary firewall of your cloud infrastructure," Marcus murmured, his fingers flying across the mechanical keyboard with terrifying speed. "I am pulling the server access logs for the past 72 hours. Let us see how they got their hands on Project Ceres." I took a slow sip of my black coffee, feeling the caffeine surge through my exhausted veins. The core repository is secured with two-factor authentication and 256-bit encryption. Julian barely knows how to reboot a router. He could not have breached the mainframe on his own. "He did not have to," Marcus replied, hitting a key that brought up a cascading wall of green text on his screen. "Look at this data packet transfer. 2 days ago, a massive download was initiated at exactly 3 in the morning. The protocol address did not bounce through a proxy server or a virtual private network. It came directly from a static residential connection." I leaned forward, my eyes scanning the alphanumeric strings. My stomach dropped. I recognized the network identifier immediately. "That is the local area network from my mother's house." "Exactly," Marcus said quietly. "Elena did not hack you. She exploited a digital ghost. When you lived there 3 years ago, you had your primary workstation synced to the home network for automated cloud backups. You updated the security protocols when you moved out. But Elena must have found the old physical backup drive connected to the main router. She used your legacy credentials, bypassed the new security layers using your old trusted device, and downloaded the entire source code directory. The sheer level of calculated malice was staggering. My mother had weaponized my past trust to steal my future." "Why?" I whispered, my analytical mind spinning rapidly. "Julian has his own agricultural logistics software. Why steal a machine learning crop yield algorithm that he does not even understand?" Marcus opened a new terminal window and began typing furiously. "Let us look at the public financial records for your brother's company. I am running a quick scrape of the corporate tax filings and registered debt structures." Seconds later, a pie chart and several red columns populated the screen. The financial reality of Julian's golden empire was laid bare, and it was a complete bloodbath. "His logistics company is functionally dead," Marcus stated, his voice completely devoid of emotion. "He is defaulting on 3 separate commercial loans. His operating capital is absolute zero. But here's the truly tragic part. 6 months ago, there was a massive cash injection of $450,000. It kept him afloat just long enough to secure a spot at this venture capital summit." "Where did the money come from?" I asked, though deep down, I already knew the sickening answer. "A fully liquidated retirement portfolio," Marcus confirmed, pointing to a specific transaction log. "Elena cashed out her entire pension, every single penny she saved for the last 30 years. She threw it all into the blazing fire of Julian's massive ego." The pieces of the puzzle aggressively snapped into place, forming a horrifying picture of financial desperation. Julian was entirely bankrupt. Elena was financially ruined. They needed a miracle, and they found one sitting on my secure cloud server. "He rebranded my code," I realized aloud, the reality of the situation crystallizing in my mind. Julian is going to present Project Ceres as his own proprietary software, and the hotel room sabotage was never just about being petty. "Right on the money," Marcus nodded, his eyes narrowing. "Julian has a closed-door pitch scheduled for 8:30 in the morning with Apex Ventures. You are scheduled to pitch to the exact same board at 10 o'clock, by leaving you stranded, sleep-deprived, and wearing wrinkled travel clothes. Elena guaranteed you would walk into that boardroom looking unstable and desperate. Meanwhile, Julian would slide in first, articulate, well-rested, and armed with your stolen billion-dollar algorithm. By the time you pitched, Apex would think you were the one stealing from your brother. Marcus reached for his phone. "This is felony intellectual property theft. I am calling the federal authorities. We can have Julian arrested in his hotel lobby before the sun comes up." "No," I said sharply, my voice cutting through the ambient noise of the cafe. I reached across the table and pushed his hand away from the phone. "Do not call the police. Do not lock him out of the system." Marcus stared at me, visibly confused. "You cannot be serious. He has your life's work. He has a loaded weapon pointed directly at your career." I leaned back in the vinyl booth, a dangerously cold smile forming on my lips. A developer always knows her own code. "Marcus, when I engineered the architecture for Project Ceres, I knew the agricultural tech market was heavily saturated with corporate spies, so I buried a ghost in the machine. I opened my own laptop and accessed the encrypted master terminal. Hidden beneath thousands of lines of mundane interface code, there is a dormant subroutine. It is a kill switch, a logic bomb designed to detonate only when triggered by a highly specific encrypted command. Julian thinks he downloaded a fully functional, independent product. He does not realize he just downloaded a puppet, and I am holding all the strings." "You are going to let him pitch," Marcus realized, a slow, predatory smirk spreading across his face as he understood the magnitude of my plan. "I am going to let him walk onto that stage," I replied, my fingers hovering over the execution command. "I am going to let him stand under the bright lights, look the wealthiest investors in the country dead in the eye, and stake his entire reputation on my software. And right when he is at the absolute peak of his arrogance, I am going to pull the floor out from under him. He wants to steal my algorithm? Fine, let him choke on it." The digital trap was perfectly set. Tomorrow morning, blood would be spilled on the boardroom floor, and it would not be mine. The grand ballroom of the convention center was a sea of tailored Italian wool and clinking crystal champagne flutes. It was 7 o'clock in the evening. The official networking gala before the high-stakes pitch sessions began the following morning. The massive hall smelled of expensive cologne, roasted prime rib, and desperate corporate ambition. When I walked through the towering mahogany double doors, I knew exactly what my mother and my brother were expecting to see. They expected a ghost. They were anticipating a frantic, exhausted, unkempt girl who had spent the previous night crying in an airport terminal or shivering in a cheap roadside motel lobby. Instead, I stepped into the warm, golden glow of the crystal chandeliers wearing a perfectly tailored emerald green silk suit. My hair was flawlessly styled. My makeup was razor sharp, and my posture radiated absolute, impenetrable confidence. Thanks to Marcus, I had slept a solid 8 hours in an ultra-secure corporate penthouse suite. I did not look defeated. I looked electric. It took less than 5 minutes for them to spot me in the crowd. I was standing near a massive ice sculpture at the center of the room, casually sipping sparkling water, when I saw Julian freeze mid-sentence. His jaw actually slackened, his cocktail glass halting inches from his mouth. Standing right next to him, Elena looked as though she had just watched a corpse resurrect itself. The color rapidly drained from her heavily contoured face, leaving a pale, sickly expression behind her thick layer of expensive foundation. She whispered something frantic to Julian, shoved her drink into his empty hand, and began marching toward me like a heat-seeking missile. Before I could even finish greeting the prominent angel investor I was speaking with, Elena clamped her perfectly manicured hand around my wrist. Her acrylic nails dug sharply into my skin. "We need to talk, right now," she hissed under her breath, forcing a wide, entirely plastic smile for the surrounding crowd of executives. I politely excused myself from the investor with a graceful nod and allowed my mother to drag me away from the bright center of the room. She pulled me into a dimly lit, secluded alcove near the service elevators, completely hidden behind heavy velvet curtains and far away from the prying eyes of the venture capitalists. The exact second, the heavy velvet curtains shielded us from the main hall. Elena dropped the loving mother facade entirely. Her face twisted into a mask of pure, venomous calculation. She reached into her designer clutch and aggressively pulled out a neatly folded, dense legal document. I do not know how you got here looking like that, and frankly, I do not care, she snapped, her voice trembling with a terrifying blend of panic and barely contained rage. You are going to sign this document, Scarlett, tonight, right here. I glanced down at the thick stack of paper in her trembling hands. The header text was bold and undeniable. It was a complete transfer of intellectual property rights. Let me guess, I said, my voice dangerously soft, entirely devoid of the fear she so desperately wanted to see. You want me to sign over Project Ceres to Julian? Elena sneered, stepping closer. He is the face of this family. Scarlett, he always has been. He has the charisma, the industry connections, the pedigree. Your little algorithm is exactly what his logistics company needs to survive this quarter. In exchange for your cooperation, he is willing to graciously name you as a senior technical consultant on his board. He will even pay you a base salary of $60,000 a year. It is an incredibly generous offer for someone in your position. I stared at her, genuinely marveling at the sheer, unadulterated audacity of the woman who raised me. She was offering me $60,000 a year in exchange for a proprietary machine learning architecture that I had personally built from scratch, an algorithm currently valued at nearly $40 million by independent market analysts. And if I refuse to sign your ridiculous contract? I asked, tilting my head slightly, maintaining absolute eye contact. Elena stepped directly into my personal space, invading my zone, her voice dropping to a vicious, guttural whisper. If you refuse, I will personally walk out of this alcove, go to every single venture capitalist in that ballroom, and tell them you stole the core code from your brother. I have 3 decades of established, untouchable relationships in this industry. I know everyone in that room. I will paint you as a disgruntled, unstable younger sister trying to sabotage her brilliant older brother out of pure, childish spite. Your career will be completely over before you even step onto the stage tomorrow morning. No reputable firm will ever give you a single dime of funding. She was so consumed by her own toxic manipulation that she was completely oblivious to the fact that right before she pulled me into the shadows, I had subtly double-tapped the side button of my smartwatch. I had activated a high-fidelity audio recording application. Every single syllable of her pathetic extortion attempt, every vicious threat, and every admission of guilt was currently being captured in crystal-clear audio and beamed directly to my encrypted secure cloud server. I did not yell. I did not cry. I did not beg for her love or her approval. The naive little girl who used to seek her mother's validation had died a long time ago, killed by 1,000 tiny betrayals just like this one. Only the software engineer remained, and engineers do not operate on emotion. They operate on execution. I looked directly into her cold, desperate eyes. I did not break my gaze for a single second. You think you are buying my career, Mother, I said, my voice echoing in the small space with a chilling, absolute certainty. But you actually just bought a one-way ticket to hell for this entire family. Elena blinked, physically taken aback by the absolute lack of submission in my tone. Her mouth opened slightly, but no words came out. Before she could process the heavy weight of my statement, I turned on my designer heel and walked out of the shadows. I glided effortlessly back into the blinding light of the ballroom. I walked straight past Julian, who was nervously sweating through his expensive tailored shirt, and I extended my hand directly to the senior managing partners of Apex Ventures. I smiled warmly, instantly engaging the lead investors in a brilliant, high-level discussion about agricultural market scalability. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Elena and Julian watching me from across the room in absolute bewilderment. They were confused. They were terrified. But as Julian clutched his briefcase tight against his chest, I knew they were still blindly clinging to the arrogant belief that the stolen code sitting on his hard drive was their ultimate salvation. They had absolutely no idea they were already dead. The executive amphitheater inside the Austin Convention Center was kept at a freezing 65 degrees. It was exactly 8:30 in the morning. The room was designed like a modern gladiator arena, with tiered seating wrapping around a massive, brightly lit central stage. Behind the stage, a colossal 90-inch digital display screen dominated the entire back wall, waiting to project the future of technology to the wealthiest people in the room. The air was thick with the scent of dark roasted coffee and the quiet, calculating energy of men and women who controlled billions of dollars in capital. I sat quietly in the third row, perfectly centered, my posture straight and my expression completely unreadable. Julian was the first presenter of the day. When they called his name over the public address system, he practically sprinted down the carpeted stairs. He was wearing a fresh, sharply tailored charcoal suit. He looked like the absolute epitome of a successful Silicon Valley visionary. He grabbed the wireless microphone with practiced ease, flashing a bright, camera-ready smile at the 5 senior partners of Apex Ventures seated at the long mahogany judges' table in the front row. "Good morning, esteemed partners," Julian began, his voice booming with unearned authority. "Today, I am not just going to show you a software update. I am going to show you how we are going to permanently solve the global agricultural logistics crisis." He clicked his remote presenter. The giant screen behind him illuminated. I felt a sharp, phantom pain in my chest. There it was, my slide deck, my pitch, every single data visualization, every carefully constructed graph detailing the machine learning predictive modeling for crop yields. Every late night I had spent surviving on black coffee and sheer willpower was now blown up to massive proportions behind my brother. Julian spoke flawlessly. He paced the stage, gesturing passionately, reciting the exact statistics and market projection numbers I had meticulously calculated over the past 14 months. He talked about reducing supply chain waste by 22%. He confidently explained the neural network integration that could predict weather pattern impacts on harvest cycles with 99% accuracy. He was putting on the performance of a lifetime, delivering a masterclass in deception. He sounded brilliant, largely because he had spent the last 48 hours memorizing every single syllable of my stolen research notes. The investment board was absolutely captivated. The lead partner, a sharp-eyed woman named Victoria, leaned forward in her leather chair, aggressively taking notes on her tablet. The other partners nodded in unison, clearly impressed by the sheer scale and ambition of the architecture. Sitting directly as the front row, right behind the judges, was Elena. She was glowing. She wore a bright red designer dress, her posture relaxed, soaking in the admiration directed at her golden child. At one point, when Julian successfully answered a complex question about server load distribution by repeating my exact white paper abstract, Elena slowly turned her head. She found me in the third row. She did not say a word, but her face twisted into a smug, venomous smile. Her eyes practically screamed absolute victory. She thought she had won. She thought the ink on her retirement check was already dry. "Mr. Martinez," Victoria interrupted, tapping her stylus against the mahogany table. "The theoretical framework is undeniably impressive, but anyone can draw beautiful charts. The agricultural technology space is filled with empty promises. You claim this algorithm is fully operational today. We need to see it in action. Right now. Run the live demo on the main screen, please." The entire room fell into a heavy, expectant silence. This was the ultimate test. Julian did not even flinch. His arrogance was truly boundless. He practically beamed at the judges, nodding enthusiastically. "Absolutely. Victoria, I would love nothing more than to show you the engine under the hood." He walked confidently over to the podium and plugged the main high-definition media interface cable directly into his laptop. He mirrored his screen to the massive 90-inch display behind him. The audience watched as he navigated through his files. Entirely oblivious to the stolen nature of the directory he was opening, he clicked on the primary executable file for Project Series. A sleek, minimalist loading interface appeared on the giant screen. A circular progress bar began to slowly fill, glowing a bright, promising blue, 10%, 20%, 30%. The investors leaned in closer. Elena sat up perfectly straight, ready to applaud. Julian stood center stage, his hands clasped behind his back, waiting for his stolen glory to finalize. They were all looking at the screen. Nobody was looking at me. I reached into the pocket of my emerald green silk suit and smoothly pulled out my smartphone. I kept my hands low, shielded from the view of the people sitting next to me. I unlocked the screen using my biometric scan and opened a highly secured, encrypted terminal application. My thumb hovered over the digital keyboard. I did not need to hack into the local network. I did not need to breach the venue's security firewall. Because the software Julian was currently running on that giant screen was intimately connected to my private cloud server to authenticate its core machine learning libraries. It was waiting for its master. I typed out a single, highly specific cryptographic string, 7 randomized alphanumeric characters, a command that I had personally hard-coded into the absolute deepest layer of the system architecture months ago, a fail-safe mechanism designed for this exact catastrophic scenario. I looked up. The giant screen showed the loading bar hitting 85%. Julian was literally taking a deep breath, preparing to launch into his final monologue. My face remained a mask of pure ice. I pressed send. The progress bar on the massive 90-inch display hit exactly 85%. Julian took a deep breath, opening his arms wide to deliver his triumphant closing statement to the investors. He never got to speak a single word. A sharp, violent digital screech erupted from the amphitheater speakers, echoing through the freezing room like a dying machine. On the giant screen, the sleek blue loading interface violently shattered. The display went completely pitch black for one agonizing second. Then, in massive, glowing, blood-red typography, a system override message slammed onto the screen. Warning: stolen source code detected. All intellectual property and copyright ownership belongs exclusively to Arrow Yield Solutions and Scarlett Martinez. System locked. The entire room, filled with hundreds of the most powerful financial executives in the country, erupted into a deafening chorus of gasps and shocked murmurs. The absolute silence of the room was shattered. Julian physically recoiled, his face instantly draining of all color until he looked like a terrified ghost. He spun around, staring at the massive red letters illuminating his pale skin. Panic set in. He lunged at the podium, frantically smashing his fingers against his laptop keyboard, desperately trying to force quit the application or minimize the window. It was completely useless. My kill switch had bricked his operating system entirely. Sitting in the third row, I smoothly stood up. I did not rush. I smoothed the wrinkles from my emerald green silk suit, stepped into the aisle, and walked down the carpeted steps with the slow, measured rhythm of an executioner. Every single eye in that massive amphitheater turned to watch me. The clicking of my heels echoed over the frantic, pathetic slapping of Julian hitting his dead keyboard. I reached the front of the room and stopped directly in front of the judge's table. Victoria, the lead partner of Apex Ventures, was staring at me with her sharp eyes wide open. I did not say a word to my brother. I simply placed a thick, leather-bound dossier onto the mahogany table directly in front of Victoria. "Good morning, Victoria," I said, my voice projecting clearly across the silent room. "Inside that folder, you will find the original, time-stamped patent filings for Project Ceres, registered 14 months ago under my name and my company, Arrow Yield Solutions. You will also find the complete cryptographic commit history, proving I wrote every single line of that architecture. Finally, there is a secure digital audio drive containing an unedited recording from last night, wherein the presenter's mother attempted to extort me into signing away my life's work to save his bankrupt logistics company." Victoria did not hesitate. She ripped open the dossier, her eyes darting across the certified legal documents and the undeniable proof of my ownership. Her expression shifted from shock to pure, unadulterated outrage. She looked up at Julian, who was now sweating profusely, trembling uncontrollably behind the podium. "Security!" Victoria barked into her microphone, her voice dripping with absolute disgust. "Get this fraud out of my sight, immediately." "Wait, please, I can explain," Julian stammered, his voice cracking pitifully. "It is a misunderstanding, a technical glitch." "You are done, Mr. Martinez," Victoria stated coldly, cutting him off. You are permanently blacklisted from Apex Ventures, and I will personally ensure every venture capital firm in this country receives a copy of this file. You will never secure a single cent of funding in this industry again. 4 heavy-set security guards swarmed the stage, grabbing Julian by his arms and dragging him away from the podium. In the front row, Elena had leaped out of her chair. Her bright red designer dress suddenly looked incredibly foolish as she screamed at the guards to let her son go. She clawed at the air, sobbing hysterically, making an absolute spectacle of herself in front of the most elite investors in Texas. But their humiliation did not end at the convention center doors. Marcus had been watching the live feed from his security office. Just as Julian and Elena were thrown into the main lobby, they were greeted by the flashing blue and red lights of local law enforcement. Federal Economic Police detectives were waiting for them. Julian was immediately placed in handcuffs and read his rights for identity theft, credit card fraud, and felony corporate espionage. Through the glass doors, I watched Elena collapse onto the marble floor. Her screams echoed into the morning air. She finally realized the absolute gravity of her actions. Her entire retirement pension, 3 decades of savings, was completely gone. Julian's company was facing massive federal lawsuits and would declare total bankruptcy before the weekend. She had gambled her entire life on a stolen algorithm, and she had lost everything. I turned my back on them and walked up the steps onto the stage. I unplugged Julian's useless laptop and pushed it aside. I reached into my pocket, pulled out my own secure flash drive, and plugged it directly into the main system. The giant red warning screen vanished, replaced instantly by the beautiful, functional interface of Arrow Yield Solutions. I looked out at the room of investors. They were sitting on the edge of their seats, completely mesmerized. Now that the interference has been cleared, I said, flashing a confident, brilliant smile. Let me show you how my algorithm is actually going to change the world. I delivered the absolute best presentation of my entire career. By the time I finished my closing remarks, Victoria and her partners did not even leave the room to deliberate. They offered me a massive seed funding round on the spot, effectively making me a multi-million-dollar chief executive officer before lunch. 5 days later, I was sitting in my brand-new, glass-walled corner office overlooking the city. My smartphone vibrated on the desk. It was an unknown number, but I knew exactly who it was. I accepted the call. Scarlett. Elena sobbed through the receiver, her voice raspy and broken. Please, they are denying Julian bail. The lawyers are taking everything I own. He is your brother. We are your family. Please drop the charges. Have some mercy. I leaned back in my leather chair, looking out at the sprawling city skyline that I had just conquered. I felt absolutely no guilt. I felt no sorrow. You do not put out a fire by hugging the arsonist, I said, my voice completely hollow of any affection. I ended the call. I permanently blocked the number, severed the final digital tie to my toxic past, and set my phone face down on the desk. I had reclaimed not just my intellectual property, but my absolute freedom. My life was finally my own, and this empire was entirely mine to rule. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. We truly appreciate you spending your time with us, and we would love to know where in the world you are tuning in from. So please drop your location in the comments below. As a quick reminder, if you found today's story entertaining and satisfying, please know that YouTube has entirely demonetized our channel, and we no longer have the budget to operate here. We will not be uploading any new videos on this platform in the near future. We are transitioning all of our content over to Patreon. We kindly ask that you help us keep these stories alive by joining our Patreon community, where you can listen to even longer, highly detailed, exclusive true stories, featuring multiple emotional voice actors that we simply cannot make public on YouTube. You can join right now by scanning the QR code on your screen or by clicking the Patreon link located in the video description or the pinned comment. Thank you again for your incredible support, and we will see you over on Patreon.